And welcome back to Coffee with the Wolves, presented by JJC Athletics. I'm Damian Dennis, and this week we're going to be catching up with our competitive cheerleading team. And joining me is Coach Tiffany Scholle.
Good morning.
Hey, I think I said it wrong.
No, you said it right. Yeah.
It was funny because just trying to roll through it. But anyway, we're here to talk about the weekend.
Yeah.
You participated down in Florida. Can you tell me what the name of the event was? Because I know it's a long name, and you're going to remember it better than I will.
Sure. It was the NCA and NDA College National Championships.
Cool. Yeah. See, I knew those letters were in there, just didn't know the order.
Right.
So.
Basically, cheer and dance national championships for all college teams.
And you guys performed there last year.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned to me over the weekend you did better than last year.
Yes.
In terms of the performance, but you also finished in third place, which was
Sure.
kind of a step. Not really, but you know what I'm getting.
Sure, yeah. Slightly smaller trophy this year. However, the field over doubled in size. So last year there were 3 teams. This year there were 7 teams. And the competitiveness increased quite a bit as well. We scored over 5 points higher in total this year than we did last year, which was, good enough for third. We were hoping to maybe get into that second slot, just edged out a little bit there. But certainly the quality of the performance was something that we're all really proud of and happy to be able to take home some more hardware as well.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean for this program? You finished second place last year, third place this year. You finished second place at the NJCAA, their first ever event earlier this year. A lot of success for Wolves competitive cheer right now.
A lot. We've really, this group of athletes, starting from last year and through this year, I had a lot of returners, and they do have this habit of exceeding expectations. When they get a challenge, they rise to the occasion, do what needs to be done. We are lucky that we pull from a lot of really strong high school competitive programs. There's really great talent in the area, so that has been helpful. And now because we've notice this continued success, 3 podium finishes in 2 years at national events is pretty exciting. Now we have the privilege of pressure to keep it up moving forward.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about just some of the scoring, because when I wrote the recap for the website, there are different scores that are kind of kept, but there's one specific one that you had told me this is the one we need to use. So
yeah, and I apologize.
No, it's fine. But I bring this up because I want, for people who don't know about competitive cheerleading, me being one of them, even though I've gotten to know a little bit now after this point. But what's the difference between the scores? Because you have raw scores, you have the final score, then you have that other one, the percentage, whatever it was.
Percent perfection. Yeah. So the raw score is taking into account the difficulty level of the skills performed and the execution that was awarded to how well those skills were performed. Then you could get deductions for various things. You could get a deduction for a little bobble, a fall. We actually, when we were down there, had to argue. They tried to give us a deduction for taking too long to set up and play the music. And we're like, oh, you double checked the tape. We were within our time. And so then that gets deducted off the raw, and then you'll see another score listed, but because it's out of 90 points as opposed to 100 points, that percent perfection is basically the factored score. Mm-hmm. And it also takes into account the fact that day 1 is 25% of our overall score. Day 2 is 75%. So they kind of do all of the math preemptively so that final score, day 2 is essentially like a percentage that you would get on a test.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense because it was funny because you would text me like, oh, we got to use this score. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that makes sense. And I was trying to do the math. I'm like, this doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to roll with it.
Yep. It's, they've got this kind of funny little system. And it is hard. It makes it difficult for people who aren't ingrained in it to understand. But generally speaking, you just kind of look at that last column and then it's comparative scoring as well. So when you can look at other teams and see, where you're at, plus or minus a couple tenths here and there.
That final score is really the only one that truly matters.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit just about the experience? Obviously, this is your second year going. You know, we talked last year about the experience. We talked earlier this year about the NJCAA experience. Maybe compare and contrast the two at this point.
Sure.
Previous year, earlier this year to now.
Okay. So if I start with just the two Daytona experiences, this year it became very evident the value of having seasoned veteran athletes on the team. Last year was the very first competition for a Wolves cheer team, and it was at a national level. It was a new experience for the athletes, a new experience for the coaches. This year was kind of a stark contrast because I had about 50% of the team that was returning. So they knew what to expect going in. As coaches, we knew exactly what to expect. We made some changes to how we approached it. And it was just, all in all, myself and my assistant coach, Kaylee, walked away thinking this was a very smooth business trip. And there weren't a whole lot of ups and downs. It was a matter of we came in, we did what we had to do. Everyone was poised, and it all wound up great.
Yeah.
If I compare this Daytona experience to when we were in Salt Lake for NJCAA, this is almost apples and oranges because these, even though they're both national events, the structure of the event is very different. NJCAA was, it's modeled after a stunt acro type event where the meets were about 2 hours long and you do a skill, wait for the other team to do a skill, get a score. And so it was a little bit more of a marathon than a sprint.
Yeah.
Versus in Daytona, we have our routine and, you know, you make sure that you're ready. You have some time to practice. You have your official warm up. You do that 2-minute, 15-second routine, get your score. And then you've got some time if you need to make adjustments, and then you're just performing that routine again the next day. So I do think there's a benefit, and I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to be a part of both organizations. Because I absolutely believe that on top of the experience from last year, being able to have that experience in Salt Lake definitely helped the team as a whole to maintain that composure throughout our experience in Daytona.
Yeah, and just about the time in Daytona, you know, outside of the competition, you know, what kind of things did the team do to kind of kill time and bond, build chemistry? I mean, obviously at this point, chemistry is probably built, but, you know, it can always keep building, keep growing.
Of course. I mean, I always say there's no team bonding like a competition, like an away competition. So, yes, we definitely had a lot of chemistry going into Daytona, but you're in such a heightened state that you can't help but get to know each other even a little bit more. Daytona is great. I describe it as a little bit of a cheerleader's paradise because as soon as you get there, as soon as you get around that band shell, it's cheer everywhere. Every square inch of the outdoor landscape is littered with teams that are practicing and getting ready for what they need to do. You have the opportunity to go into different venues and watch different teams in various divisions. They've got food trucks out there for lunch. So really our time when we weren't competing, you know, again, it's a business trip until we're done. So we had scheduled times that we were practicing outside, making sure we were ready to go. We were able to give the team a few hours for lunch so that they could explore around, kind of break off into smaller groups or stay as a whole and figure out what they wanted. We had a couple team dinners in there, which were great. Our last night, we happened upon this really cute little Italian restaurant, which had great food. Service was very slow, but also had a live guy singing. And so they went out and essentially did karaoke with him. So lots of just fun opportunities to enjoy each other's company, really.
Yeah. How do you practice for events like these? Especially, let's compare the two, the NJCAA and this one, because you mentioned the other one, it's more of a marathon. This one's a sprint. How do you kind of practice for those two, and how are they different?
Sure. So for NJCAA, it's a matter of really focusing in on particular skills. The vast majority of what we were doing and getting scored on was skills in isolation, a particular stunt, a particular tumbling pass, and it's more on the coaches to decide and pick. These are the athletes that are performing at the best, so they're the ones that will actually do it in the moment. In practice, it's just running reps of it over and over again, looking for kind of perfection and execution. And then I love that we have opportunities to perform in front of people when we're at the basketball games, either on sidelines or half times, just to give them that experience of, well, you also have to do it in the moment when it counts. For the NCAA Nationals, this is a routine. And so once we get our routine choreographed, which this year we did in late mid-December, somewhere in there, you start training it, and you pay attention to what's working, what isn't working. Do we need to move people around in spots? Do we need to adjust a skill? And then it's a matter of trying to see, how often can we do this 2-minute, 15-second routine while hitting all the skills and making sure there's more of a performance element to it, where the judges are looking to see, how are you interacting with the crowd? What's the charisma within it? Yeah. And so that, again, is where we look to try and perform the routine in front of people. We had a little bit of a send-off here at JJC where we invited parents and family to come watch. Yeah. Run through of the routine. And then Lewis University hosted a showcase for all of the area schools headed out to Daytona, where that's a bigger crowd and you get to perform it that way, which is great prep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think I asked you this a year ago, maybe it was earlier this year, but any possibility of getting more kind of events during the year? I forget what you had said whenever I asked it, because I don't even remember when I asked. Sure. But, just kind of setting up more competitive events, maybe here at JJC or other schools.
Yeah. So through the NJCAA construct, there's definitely opportunities, because that's a one team versus another team kind of match setup. Mm-hmm. And so long as you can find some judges, you come in and you run through kind of a prescribed series of events to do that. And yes, I would love to be able to set that up and or travel to go to another school and do it. Yeah. That's going to require just a little bit of research as to what other junior colleges within a certain radius are doing it. I know this year we are the only junior college competitive cheer team that competed at NJCAA in Illinois. I think the next closest team was from Kansas. So that might be slim pickings, but I'm definitely going to keep my eye on it. Yeah. For more competitive events that are similar to NCA, that really, it's kind of that showcase idea where you don't have a panel of judges in there, but you can gather a bunch of teams together, invite their fan base to come watch, and kind of set up a similar type situation. Because for NCA, it's the one and done. For a lot of teams, that is the one and only time that perform their routines.
How has all this success over the last, I guess, year or 2 years helped with recruiting?
Success breeds success. Yeah. I believe that as well. So 3 years ago now, when I was hired, we had 4 girls that we kind of took under our wing and worked with them. They were out at basketball games and they really helped us with recruiting efforts, but it's hard to get a message out about a competitive cheer team when you don't have a competitive cheer team to look at. So I was selling an idea, and I was selling hey, we have the potential on paper. We are pulling from great areas, so we should be really good. Then last year, having a team being successful, we noticed a huge increase in numbers coming in to try out for the team or be considered in our evaluations. And, wound up with a larger team from year 1 to year 2, a more successful team as well from year 1 to year 2. And now I'm already starting the process of hosting open gyms, and we'll have an evaluation coming up in about 3 weeks here for next year's team. And what I'm noticing more than anything else is people are reaching out to me instead of me having, and I'm happy to find the talent and reach out to them and say, hey, you should come cheer for us. But the athletes are being a little bit more proactive. Our Instagram presence has been very helpful. They see the videos, they see what's happening, and they're like, hey, I'd like to be a part of that. What has to be done? So I think that's only going to continue to grow.
Yeah. And I guess kind of last question as we begin to wrap up here, but I want to give you a moment to highlight both some of those some of the sophomore athletes that are leaving after this year, and then some of the freshmen who you think will step up next year.
Yeah. So, I mean, really the entire sophomore class that I have on the team, which, like I said, is about 50%, they all stepped up this year. They were phenomenal leaders, not just at competition, day in and day out at practice, even as we were talking about basketball games and things like that. They really kind of personified what it means to be a JJC Wolves cheerleader, and took all of our kind of newer athletes under their wing and looked out for them, not just athletically, but with their holistic experience as being here. And then for my, newer athletes to the team, I hope that they're all back next year because they all did a great job. And certainly by the end of the season, I think for an outsider looking into the team, it would have been somewhat difficult to identify who are the newer athletes and who are the veteran, because everyone just kind of, it was an all hands on deck, step up, and this is just what we do type mentality.
Well, Tiffany, I appreciate you taking the time to join me here on Coffee with the Wolves.
Of course, thank you for having me.
And also congratulations on, the third place finish.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll be back next week with more Coffee with the Wolves.